what I just want to do today is go over the guidance materials that I have. If it does turn out that throughout the summer, especially here in June, if anybody wants to do a regular meeting, probably no more than a half hour at a time, where I get with you to do Q&A, I might hire a student worker to be our tutorial person on math if we think we need it. There's a bit of variation in what are the prerequisite type materials that sometimes people need to work on. Some of you, most of you, it's probably just been a while since you've seen it. Other times, especially if you've been in a specialized ag business program or a business program, it's kind of hard to tell where you got your quant methods, and it may have been buried in an animal science class, and you already know all you need to know. But just to make sure everyone's on the right level. And so I've got materials that I point to that are online through the Khan Academy. There's a few books. Now, when a book is up there on our Dropbox, it's not likely that you're going to need to read the whole darn thing. And if you do read the book, some of the time it's a matter of figuring out if the presentation in that book is the one that resonates with you. So when you have questions or comments about it, be sure and let me know as soon as you can. And then if we want to have a meeting to talk through, especially to answer the question, how much of this is really essential for being able to do the work in the fall classes. Our program, the Texas A&M MAB, is very quantitative, and it's intentionally that way. We think that's what differentiates us from your typical MBA degree. And we are committed to this quantitative level because of the way we in ag economics have our tradition. In doing economic studies, there's theoretical development, there's conceptual things, and then there's doing applied research, which is where the agricultural economics profession has always been. We're among the first applied economists, so if you look back at some of the fundamental things that happened in economics, it was because the biggest societal and economic problem was, why are farmers so poor? And if farmers are so poor, is there going to be an adequate gross domestic product for our nation? So this goes back to the founding of the Department of Agriculture and getting the information in the form of data that could enhance transactions in the food system and also serve to help evaluate whether the price support policies for farmers were being effective. So we still in our department at Texas A&M are very close to agricultural policy analysis, and we do it with quant. MAB students are typically not going that direction with their quant work. They're going to companies. And the companies are hiring people because they are able to assist in making data-driven decisions. So that means we have prerequisite for mathematics up to the level of derivative calculus, statistics, that is understanding enough probability to evaluate the statistical results that come out of an econometrics or a simulation package. And third, to have economics reasoning. Most MAB students have a good concept about economics, but the way it's presented, especially the interaction with mathematics and equations and graphical, that's sometimes where the grad level step up is. Okay, so it's those three prerequisite areas. I'm sharing the screen of our Dropbox folders, and this is the MAB Student Documents 2. All of you have your own folder where we like to see your resume. Even as tough as the job market is right now, I do still get calls from people asking for prospective employees. Sometimes a part-time job, sometimes a full-time job, sometimes an internship. And so if I can go to your cohort in 2020, wow, time passes, and get your resume file and quickly email it over to that sponsor, that's what they like. Let's see, I created a folder for curriculum yesterday, And under here is a folder for calculus and stat. Right now, the way my Dropbox is showing, this sits with alphabetical order. Let's see if I can make that just a tad bigger. Well, it didn't help make it readable. Let's go first to these links. And for those of you here in the call, I don't know if you need statistics, calculus, or economics, or some combination thereof, but right now what I've got is the statistics. In addition to calculus, I have found in teaching the managerial economics course, the biggest calculus problem we need to solve as an economist is optimization. We need to have an objective for the company. That objective might be to minimize its cost. The objective might be to maximize its profits, and there'll be some constraints on the company. You can't minimize cost effectively outside of the context of your production technology, so the constrained cost minimization with a production function is the framework we're in, and there'll be an equation for the objective, there'll be an equation for the constraint, there's certain choice variables, and there's calculus to get through that, and then there's algebra to get to the final solution. And so typically I find in my class that people make more mistakes on the algebra than the calculus. Why is that? Do we forget it more? I don't know. But I have created inside of Khan Academy 2 classes which I think you ought to be able to get into. And they are free. In my recent experience at Khan Academy, because I've signed up to it as an instructor, they email me pretty often with news, don't you want to do this? But they never ask me for money, so that's good. But I would be curious to hear if you get in there and find that there's any payment asked for. So this is some of the algebra, and then here's another bit of algebra. So I recommend that. Now let's say you've never studied calculus. Inside of Khan Academy, you'll also find calculus, and it's massive. It's covers the concepts behind calculus, and the concept behind calculus is look at very small increments of time. So you're in a dynamic framework when you study calculus, and that's important for us making business or economics decisions, because equilibrium never happens. We don't stabilize to just one set of conditions. There's always change. And so the principles of economics are to look at what's going to happen to your system when some factor, one of the random variables in that system, changes by just a little bit. So we're going to use derivative calculus for that. And when you go into the Khan Academy materials for calculus, they have a lot on integrals, which is another area of calculus. Integral calculus is really important for welfare economics, which is a field we in agribusiness don't touch. It's also important for financial economics, but only at the doctoral level. So you really don't need to know anything about integral calculus for our purposes. So going into the Khan Academy math for calculus, you want to focus your attention only on derivatives. And I have somewhere, haven't found it yet today, I have somewhere created a set of modules that point you in the direction of what's the appropriate derivative calculus links. So that's not here yet, but watch this file, and when I get it, you'll find it. So let's say you want to refresh your math. I would recommend that you start first on this algebra course 1, which I created, I can't remember when, maybe 2 years ago, and then another one, algebra, here. Sal Khan, he's the creator of Khan Academy. Apparently he became very wealthy in some tech company or another, And he got tired of doing that. He said, well, all around the world, people need a bit of training. I'm going to use all the educational training materials to put it all online for free. So it's a very video-ish approach. You'll see him talking and drawing on a blackboard and solving a few problems, and it's pretty straightforward. Or if you feel like you already were exposed to some of this material and all you want to do is get like a benchmark test done, you can approach the Khan Academy materials that way too. But I kind of enjoy listening to him talk, and to see how he can use all the different colors on a blackboard is kind of slick. So I'm going to put here that I need to add the links for derivative calculus. So when I talk about derivative calculus, if you're saying I've never even heard those two terms before, then you really need to start from the very scratch and learn the definition of a derivative. If you're saying, oh yeah, I do remember, and there are derivative rules, but I just need to remind myself what they are and get a few practice problems, then you can tailor your work appropriately. So here is, inside of our folder under curriculum, calculus and stat, derivative rules. This is a handout. It's also inside of my class folder. And if this notation rings a bell and all you need to do is refresh your memory, then there's probably no point in learning to memorize these rules, but to find a few practice problems in Khan Academy on these, that would be good. I don't know for sure that this notation matches up with Khan Academy. Not sure. In our economics, we use the power rule a lot. We have a lot of functions in economics that show diminishing marginal effects, or they show the flattening out of a cost curve where returns to scale don't start to diminish. You have constant returns to scale. And so for that kind of a function, you're going to have either a quadratic or a cubic or an exponential or a natural log, all those diminishing marginal effects. And so the power rule has to be used when you're taking the derivative of a function which has a squared term in it. Okay, so let's say that just having a list to refresh your memory about the derivative rules isn't really enough. My favorite book for calculus is Chang, and what I've got here is really only the introduction or the cover for Chang, but I have a note to you right here. Are you guys seeing a picture of a book cover now, or do I need to share?
Yes.
Good, good. And here's the chapters in Chang that I think would be enough for a master's level person. Now, I don't have a copy of the whole Chang book, but I bet you can get it from the library, or if you need a copy of it, let me know. I could possibly copy mine, but almost any calculus book is fine. I just happen to have Chang, and Chang selects material that an economist needs. Sometimes calculus is oriented toward an engineer, and so there'll be a lot of focus on things that economists don't use very much. Okay, so that book is an alternative. And then this chapter, called Math for Microeconomics, someone made a nice copy of this for me, but sadly I can't tell you what this is taken from. I don't know what book this is from, but I've looked through it and it looks good. So this might be a good parallel or substitution for Chang. And if you really can't apply a derivative formula to an equation without really understanding the background, this is what you want to do. If instead your mind is, oh yeah, I want to see a graph, there's a graph. And if you can never connect this equation and this changing of position around that graph to this picture, that doesn't matter a ton. This book tends to explain what a derivative is and where it came from. That's quite conceptual. What I'm looking for you to do is to apply the derivative rules. And there's another copy of the derivative rules, slightly different notation perhaps. So this chapter's okay if you've never taken calculus, and there are several examples of taking a derivative and a partial derivative, and partial derivatives are 99% of the calculus that we do at the master's level in our program. So if you can get around this and then get on Khan Academy for a few examples. We use elasticity a lot, very important. We use second derivatives a lot. We don't use Young's theorem too much. Okay, so there's a chapter for you to take a look at. What else? What is this? A few problems. Oh, these are statistical problems. Okay, so I think that's the calculus material I have. Inside of my links file, I'm still missing all the specifics of where to go on Khan Academy. If you go into Khan Academy before I find that and give you better guidance, do keep in mind that you don't need to worry about integrals. Okay, question about calculus?
No, ma'am.
No, ma'am.
Now about statistics. Lots of people have done more with statistics, especially in their senior level courses in their undergrad, but maybe you haven't had a full entire stat course. So I would have talked to you about that, and we do put you in an econometrics course in your first semester. And so this course in Khan Academy in statistics, let me see if I can get over to that, if it'll open up properly. I thought this whole thing was really good. I haven't gone through the whole of it myself. Okay, so that's still sharing properly, I think. Okay. So I thought this was good, and I would recommend that you do it. When you get all the way up to advanced regression, you probably don't need that. You're going to be doing advanced regression during the course. So your preliminary is making sure that you have the basics of thinking about data, how it's displayed. And I'm pretty sure because of the way that Khan Academy likes to present to be accessible to people at a lot of different levels, they may not give you depth about the notation that will be in the theoretical part of your econometrics course. So, review stat for econometrics. This comes from Dr. Ishtorsh, who will be your instructor. And in the past, she presented this. So why not take a look at it so that when she does this review in a one hour session or less, you'll be familiar with the way this notation works. Okay. So summation notation is the compact way that statisticians are summarizing up the different random variables. And so a lot of your tests are using that notation. And then there's also matrix math. Sometimes in your animal nutrition courses, the recipe is the recipe for feed is a matrix structured problem. So these notes from Dr. Ishtorsh are there for you to look at. I assume that she'll go present it again. So any questions you have about it would be okay, but I recommend the Khan Academy first. And what else do I have? I have a statistics book. So this was a homework assignment, I believe, in Dr. Rishtor's class. So you can take a look at that in advance if you like, or you can just wait until it's given to you. This handout doesn't come from Dr. Ishtar's. I can't remember who it's from. I think I just got it on I don't remember where I got it. But anyway, this is another statistical related practice. Okay. So when you go through Khan Academy, there'll be a section that says, how do we conceive of a distribution of random variables, a distribution for a random variable. A random variable can take certain values. Do those values occur with the same likelihood, or is it a bimodal distribution where people are scattered both at very, very high incomes and very, very low incomes and few in the middle? Or is it a case where the more people have middle income and very, very low is a unlikely occurrence and very, very high is an unlikely occurrence? So these characteristics of the way random variable outcomes occur and are scattered in a frequency histogram, there are certain equations for some standard commonly used densities, and the normal distribution, the normal density is a very common one. So that's the equation for it. I don't expect that you'll ever be asked to memorize this equation, but knowing about it and deriving some other concepts from it is important, because especially in your simulation class in the springtime, you'll be analyzing results of densities, and you'll either look at them in the density form or you'll look at them in the distribution function form, and these are like different ways to view the same information. So that's something to read on STAT. Okay. Now for economics, I haven't set up anything yet. Do either of you need economics prereq, or have you studied a lot of econ? I know Eli probably has.
I think I'm good in economics also.
Good, good. I don't think, I guess there's one person who's coming from a business school background. Now the business school people have econ. I can't recall if anybody needs econ per se, but I will start to put under a curriculum folder the book for our 621 class, a few examples, but I think we're okay on econ theory.